The freedom was a very simple one. That to move from the physical restraint to a place where you had relative ability to move about. After the period of slavery, the concept of freedom became slightly different. It became one of, now that the chains are off, now that the fences are removed, now that the dogs are no longer put on us, now that you no longer have a right to deprive me of the ability to move, then it became clear that even though those things were gone, freedom still was not there. So it became a little less tangible. Even though you couldn't vote, and even though you couldn't walk on the same side of the street, and even though you had to drink out of a special fountain, and even though your children had to go to special schools and you had to live in special areas, the idea, though, is that somehow it was still less tangible. It was less clear. It was more abstract. But people knew something still was wrong, so they said, freedom means let me participate. So they said, boss, now that the chains are gone, let me do some of what you do. Let me go where you go, eat where you go to the bathroom where you go to the bathroom. Let me live where you live, and let my children go where yours go. And our concept of freedom then became one of participation. And so for almost a half of a century, we worked hard to participate. We wanted to simply do what boss did. And if we were doing what boss was doing, we thought we were free. And we made lots of efforts to try to do what boss did. We prayed, we marched, we sat in, we walked in, we voted, we unvoted, we got beaten down in the streets. We did everything just trying to let boss let us participate. Because the concept of freedom then was just to be able to do what boss was doing. Then the laws got shifted again, and they began to let us do that. We could vote, and we could drink out the same fountain, eat at the same place, sleep in the same place. We really thought that now the freedom was here. Then we kept finding out something still ain't right. It still ain't right. So I tell you what, boss, let us be like you. We want to marry you, and listen, we want to go to your school. We don't want no of these colored schools. We want to go to your school, boss. We don't want to have no black community. We want to live integrated. No longer no participation. We want to integrate. We want to live right next to you. We want to pray next to you. We want to sing next to you. We want to do everything right with you. Don't give us none of this old black stuff. None of this old Africa stuff. I'm an American, boss. I'm a real American. And once we began to push for that, we didn't want nothing to keep us from being a good American. We wanted to fight where boss fought. We wanted to go to his war, live in his way. So the thrust then had gone from plantation to participation to membership. We wanted to be shared members, and we thought we'd be free. But then we found out that we got there and we were sitting there and somehow we still didn't feel free. Sitting in his school, still didn't feel free. Reading his book, still didn't feel free. On his television, still didn't feel free. In his plays, still didn't feel free. Everything we did still didn't give us the sense of being free, because we knew that something was still missing.
Powerful intro by Dr. Naim Akbar. It's Saturday, so you already know what it is. Welcome to On the Shoulders of Giants. This is where we deliver the Negro news, but we're going to do it a bit different today because I have a special guest in the building. Brother Henry Rawls is in the building, and we are going to get into a great discussion about breaking the chains of psychological slavery. And of course, this discussion comes out of the work of Dr. Naim Akbar. And I do want to give a shout out to Dr. Naim Akbar and the Akbar family. They are residents here in Tallahassee, Florida. So I bump into him every now and then. And I'm acquaintances with his son. So give a good shout out to the Akbar family. They do a lot of great work here in Tallahassee and other places. But Dr. Akbar laid a foundation that I have built some of my knowledge upon. I read the book years ago. I was in college, matter of fact, when I read Breaking the Chains of Psychological Slavery, and it blew my mind. It opened my mind as well to what psychological slavery truly is, because you see at the end of the video, Dr. Naim Akbar getting into how Black people are putting themselves in white spaces and still don't feel free. You still are not free, even past the feeling. The reality is you are not free. And so that's what we're going to get into. We want to dive deep into psychological slavery, what it is, how it affected us, but also coming up with solutions of breaking the chains, because that was the purpose of the book, to break the chains. And that's the purpose of this conversation. So, Brother Henry Rawls, how you doing today, man?
Peace, brother. I'm good, man. Thank you for bringing me on and giving me a voice today. I appreciate you.
No, brother, I appreciate you, first of all, because, you know, this all started with you reaching out. First of all, you supporting the channel. So I appreciate you and all the support that you've given, but you reaching out and had me on your channel. So it was only right that I bring you on the Shoulders of Giants and introduce you to my audience. And my audience already know we support. So anybody that we talk about on this channel, anybody that we bring on this channel, you already know, make sure you support. So before we get deep, make sure you hit that like button. It says 19 people in here right now, and we need to make sure we have 19 likes in here. So every time you come in, hit that like button, make sure you comment, subscribe, and share. And you know what this means when I do this finger right here? That means Joe Biden told me to tell you that if you don't hit that like button, then you don't like Black people. So make sure you hit that like button, right? So if you don't mind, please give my audience some background information about yourself, introduce yourself, and tell us about your YouTube channel and your platform and everything.
Okay, so yeah, I go back in the history about myself. I actually started doing radio back in 1992.
Okay.
This is before YouTube, before Blog Talk Radio, before anybody could just get online. The internet wasn't even available like that yet until 1995, 96, 97, everybody started getting email addresses. But I was already doing this on FM terrestrial radio long before that. So that's basically where I got my start. I've done any number of shows on the radio, internet radio, public access television, wrote for websites. I've done all those things. Fast forward to right now, I am on the DJ Tiger channel. That's DJAY Tiger on YouTube. And I do a weekly podcast called The Fact Project. And FACT, of course, is an acronym that stands for Fundamental African-Centered Thought. And the goal on the FACT Project is to convey some thoughts and some information to members of our community. So we've had Joseph Ward from On the Shoulders of Giants. We had Brother Ajay Tyemba of Harlem Liberation School. I've had Pam Africa from the MOVE organization on there twice recently. I've had elected officials like the great Honorable Charles Barron out of Brooklyn, New York. Any number of people. So I try to bring on good guests that I know are going to bring good information and, bring good analysis and even some solutions to those of us that are interested in that sort of information. So that's basically it in a nutshell.
Okay. Now, and that's great. And shout out to Professor Carl Tone Jones and Patrick Irvin. But Professor Carl Tone Jones, he knows Pam Africa, and I know we vicariously through him, we feel like we know her because he talks glowingly about her all the time. So
she's good people.
Yes. Definitely. That's all I hear about her is how great of a person she is. So I definitely have to have her on this channel one day.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I could link you. I have to speak to her first, but I could make that happen.
Okay. Appreciate that.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah. And thank you, Tiffany. Like Tiffany told y'all, make sure y'all hit that like button coming in because we're having a great conversation about breaking the chains of psychological slavery. It's the brother Henry Rawls in the building. And I want to give a quick shout out and a thank you to Michael Anthony Clark Jr., and Gary Hall. I appreciate both of you for your contributions to the channel. Just know your contributions go to the Black History School that we have here for On the Shoulders of Giants, making sure that we enrich our children with the history that they need about themselves so they can know how to love themselves properly, and we can build a generation of Black people who are producers and forward movers, not people who are just stagnant and just going in the same circles over and over and over. So, man, let's jump into this conversation. What is your background or your information on Dr. Naim Akbar? How familiar are you with Dr. Naim Akbar? Let's start there.
Okay, that's a good question. So the entrance point to knowledge of self for me back in the 80s was Malcolm X, of course.
Okay.
And then, back then you try to get VHS tapes, cassette tapes, newspaper articles, whatever you can get on Malcolm X, you will get your hands on that. I eventually learned about Marcus Garvey from studying Malcolm X and just beginning to, get that knowledge of self. And then I started to learn about the African-centered psychologists like Dr. Wade Nobles and Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, who was both a psychologist and a psychiatrist. Of course, Amos Wilson, and, up until people like Joy DeGruy, so forth and so on. So I learned that I studied Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, and Dr. Jeffries, because here in New York, that was like the triad at the time. And I listened to the African-centered scholars and the educators, but when I listened to the African-centered psychologists, they always seem to add another layer.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I eventually discovered Naim Akbar. I'm not sure how, but I learned about breaking the chains of psychological slavery. And it's not a very big book, but it's very profound. So, of course, I inhaled the book inside of like 2 days. And that's easily, one of my favorite books ever. Yeah, because the way, the analysis, and this is what I admire most about the African-centered psychologists and psychiatrists, is the analysis, that they bring to the table. I also have to mention the great Dr. James McIntosh, who's also a doctor of psychiatry here in New York City. He's co-chair of CMOTAP, which is the Committee to Eliminate Media Offensive to African People. So over time, just in my journey, the African-centered psychologists have become my favorite people. So I just discovered Naim Akbar in that journey, just kind of like getting put on to the educators, the classroom teachers, the Dr. Benz, the Dr. Clarks, the Dr. Jeffries. I've learned about Professor James Small years later, Dr. Kaba, all of those people. But when I listen to the psychologists, it feel like it always raised my consciousness to some extent.
Yeah.
So people like Amos Wilson and Naim Akbar, those are people I hold in high regard. So just in my journey over time, just, paying attention and just staying on that course, trying to get that knowledge and trying to get and learn as much as I can. I came across the teachings of Naim Akbar, and I'm beyond impressed with him and his work.
Yeah. Yes. I believe I learned about Dr. Akbar, truly learned about him when I got to college, because like I said, there's the Akbar family lives here, and I went to school with some of the cousins of Dr. Akbar's sons, and so I'm familiar with the Akbar family. And you heard the name Dr. Naim Akbar. When I was younger, we didn't learn anything about Black psychology here, and so my deep dive was when I got to college, and then I read this incredible book. Like you said, it's not a big book, so. What was funny is I heard so much about the book and so much glowing talk about Dr. Akbar. I'm thinking the book would be about this thick.
Right.
But then when you put your hands on the book and you see the book and you like, oh, it's a small book. But then when you read it, it's kind of the analogy I use. You remember from the Men in Black movie when they gave Will Smith the small noisy cricket gun, but when he shot it, how powerful it was.
Yeah.
And that's that book. Like, it's a small book, but it's powerful from the front. Like, he didn't waste time. There's no fluff in it.
That's right.
It's getting straight to analysis of what happened to us, why it happened to us, and how we can begin to reverse that. And I think like that was brilliant. And once again, like one of my favorite books.
Yeah, and he even has a chapter on liberation from mental slavery. So, we talk about solutions. Yeah, he goes into the solutions in the book. But again, not like you said, it's not wordy. And, I learned years ago, it doesn't require many words to speak the truth. And he got right to the point. I mean, he went from point A to point B that quick, you know, in that book. But it's definitely a life changer for me.
Right, definitely. All right, so let's get further into it. So let's talk about psychological slavery. So from your understanding of reading Dr. Naim Akbar's book, what did he mean by psychological slavery, and how different is it from breaking free from physical slavery?
Okay, so that's a good question. I think if we're going to break the chains of psychological slavery, we first have to talk about the condition that created psychological slavery in the first place. Okay, so that condition is what the great Neely Fuller Jr. always referred to as the system of white supremacy.
Yes.
I like to clarify, because when you say system of white supremacy, people that don't want to get it, they'll say, oh, well, you're saying white people are supreme. That's not what that means. So I make sure I say the system of structural racism, excuse me, which is based on the myth of white supremacy. That's the core right there. You know, we talk about the ma'afa in the past tense, but as it relates to psychological slavery, ma'afa is very much present tense, because a lot of us are still dealing with the psychological slavery, and that's in part because we've gotten a full orientation into European-centered culture,
right,
which has basically stripped us of our identity as African people and robbed us of our cultural dignity. And so as a result, now we live in a state of learned indifference. We learn to be indifferent to the knowledge of ourselves. That's part of the psychological slavery right there. I think it's interesting that, you know, as it relates to education, a Black child can graduate from high school with a diploma, and at that point, they will know everyone else's history and culture and not know their own history and culture. We call that getting an education, right?
Right.
And so Black children need a education that affirms them and gives them confidence. They're not getting that in the public school, and public school is all part of the system. They even call it the public school system, right? So I think Neely Fuller Jr. was very much on point when he said that racism is a system. It's not just individuals doing wrong things. Racism is actually a system, and the public school is very much a part of that system. And it puts us in a place where we need cultural restoration, and that culture, a culture that functions outside of the influence of this system's culture. And if we don't have a culture that functions outside of this system's culture, then I don't know that freedom from psychological slavery is possible. And I would say this too also. There are 3 reasons why Black people don't have knowledge of themselves. Now, it's true, but some people, you know, feel like they're getting their toes stepped on. Number 1 is disinformation in the public school, because we get that European-centered education only. Number 2 is the media, disinformation in the media. And now you can add a layer to that, and you have social media, right? That helps to facilitate a lot of the ignorance. And then, in addition to that, and this is getting into an area where it's dicey for a lot of people, but religion and religious institutions and the disinformation there. Okay, those are the 3 reasons we don't have the proper knowledge of ourselves. So if we want to break the chains of psychological slavery, we first need to understand that, and then we can go from there and begin to, you know, embrace our culture as African people.
No, so, I totally agree. Yes, sir. Yeah. But see, the religion one, man, you know how Black people are, because historically, and I get into debates with a lot of Black people, because I understand it's their ignorance of the system of white supremacy, but also their ignorance in how Black Americans were socially engineered. Because in order for me to be socially engineered, you have to understand me and my behavior and know how to change that. And so in some people's minds, white people don't know us. They think we know them better than they know us. But if you're talking about dominance, true physical, psychological, mental, economic dominance, if they're able to dominate us in the way they are, that's because of a level of knowledge that they have of us that we don't think they have. And it's our ignorance. But it also goes into the religious aspect, because they understand how religious we are. Black people are the most religious. We're going to out religion, and Dr. Clark talked about it. We're going to out religion anybody on this earth. And so being able to attack that portion of us, and then rework it, and so we're expressing ourselves religiously in a way that still helps to uphold the system of white supremacy. But the fear tactic that they've put into it, you're gonna fear them. You either want to go to hell with the devil or you want to go to heaven with God. So you make your choice.
Right. It's fear-based programming. And so I said this in my book too. Black people are the most religious people and the most spiritual people, yet we're in the worst condition out of all people, socially, politically, and economically.
Right.
If the religion was going to work, we would have been free by now. Okay,
Right.
we wouldn't be having a conversation about psychological slavery. But a lot of people don't realize that religion is a component of psychological slavery. So the point is,
Right.
when you associate power with an image, you will extend that power to people that resemble the image. And so if your deity looks like your oppressor, how much time are you going to really spend trying to eliminate the oppression, which is being exemplified by you, against this oppressor that looks like the very deity that you're praying to?
Right.
So religion really, it holds us back, you know,
Right.
and it's not just Christianity. I throw Islam in there because
Religion. Yes.
religion period. The first people to enslave Africans were the Arabs, and forced their religion on us. And so we were forced to be indoctrinated into their religion. And now religion, now here's the thing, as a Black nationalist, stands out for me, it's glaring. Religion is about individual salvation. It's not about Black unity. It's not about independence, you know, for Black people as a group.
True.
It's not about group solidarity at all.
True.
It's about individual salvation. So now, and I learned this too, and this is one of the most profound things I learned studying since I've been studying. European culture, the highest ideal in European culture is the thing. And the thing could be money. It could be material possessions. It could be colonizing another people's country. But the highest ideal is the thing or the acquisition of the thing. In African culture, the highest ideal is relationships with other people. And so religion does not necessarily encourage relationships. It encourages individualism more than anything else. Now, even in the wild, animals even understand that unity and solidarity as a group is what makes you strong. So, for example, lions live in pride, right? They travel together, they eat together, they rest together, so forth. If a little baby cub lion is kind of like not paying his full attention and he's kind of straying off, the hyenas are in the tall grass laying for him. And so if he gets far enough away from the rest of the group, the hyenas are going to jump on him and they're going to tear him up.
Yeah.
Right. So the point is, individuality is a prerequisite to vulnerability. And so if religion is promoting this individuality and individualism, and what we need is solidarity and unity, first principle of the Nguzo Saba is unity, the religion is never going to free us. If anything, it's going to continue to hold us back. And to repeat what you said, is fear-based programming. So, yeah, if you're in this place of fear, you're not thinking clearly because you're being programmed to have this fear.
Right. And it was a reason the missionaries were sent in before the armies came in. It was to reprogram and a reconnaissance mission. So an army comes into your area. They've never been there before, but they know exactly where to go because they're led by somebody who has the inside information. But they're also able to move further, and the people are a lot more malleable, especially if they've brought into the new religion, the new fear-based individualistic religion that's also playing upon the tribalism that we've already displayed. And then now fast forward to the 1600s, fast forward to the making of the Negro in America. The Negro has to have a specific mindset in order for this white supremacy system thing to work.
That's right.
And if these Negroes think they free, and if they actually work together, then it's gonna be a problem. So to be less crash, I call it the Negro mindset, but it's the N-word mindset, the Negro mindset. Because I always say white America's greatest invention was the Negro mindset. To teach us to be self-destructive, group destructive, and to help prop up the system of white supremacy.
Absolutely. And Black people must be ignorant in order for the system of white supremacy to work. And the great Amos Wilson, quoting the Psychologist, says, to conquer a people, you must destroy the love that they have for each other.
Right.
So you got to destroy that unity. And that's one of the greatest perceived threats in America is Black unity, Black self-determination, and Black self-sufficiency. You gotta have unity to do that. Now, I say it all the time, and I said it to you when you were on the Fact Project. I said it's strength in numbers. We're always going to be stronger together than we will ever be separate. And we have people power, but we don't understand people power.
Right.
Because we're not organized, right? And organized people can do anything, and working together works. And the Right Honorable Marcus Garvey said that the greatest weapon used against Black people has been disunity.
Yes.
And so if we're going to break the chains of psychological slavery, we got to find a way to come together. And the culture piece is a large part of it too, because some people are Christians, some people are Sunni Muslim, some people are 5%, some people are Moors, some people are saying they're, indigenous to America. Mm-hmm. You got all this stuff going on. So because we're not culturally on the same page, we kind of create that distance between each other. And so that unity is not going to always be necessary. And at the end of the day, you're not going to get everybody. And real talk, some people don't want to be free.
Right. So let's pivot a bit to the miseducation piece, the purposeful miseducation piece, because it goes in line with the religion piece, because in my opinion, the religion goes into how we educate, because what you believe will impact what you are taught or the information that you retain. So the school systems are pretty much set up to just give information to teach, especially Black kids, how to retain and recall. Right. So I retain information, I recall it, but I don't really know anything. I haven't really learned anything. And then if I do learn something, it's in a manner that shapes my mind and shapes my skill sets to support white institutions, white corporations. And I'm not necessarily being taught how Dr. Amos Wilson would say, how to solve my problems. I'm being taught how to solve white people's problems. We're being taught how to work in white people's corporations and help white people build their money. But then we come back to our communities, and our communities never change. So what is your thought on the purposeful miseducation of Black children, and throwing a solution of what can we do to start moving toward to educating our kids better towards more solution-based things?
Okay, so that's a good question. I consider this to be the civil rights mentality. Civil rights mentality says go to college and get a degree so that you can get a good job. What is a good job? A good job is a job working for a white-owned corporation. Mm-hmm. And the bigger the corporation is, the better the good job is perceived to be. So instead of trying to fit in to their society, we need to create an independent reality for ourselves. Right. And at the end of the historical day, there's only been two movements of Black people in America. There's been the integration movement and the independence movement. And so the integration movement, they thought that freedom for us meant integrating with our oppressor. These were people like the Urban League, NAACP, Civil Rights Movement. They thought that freedom meant using the public restroom next to certain people, right? On the other hand, you had the independence movement, which was people like Martin Delany, Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X. They were saying we need to create an independent reality for ourselves if we are truly to be free. So our goal should be Black life. And shout out to Brother Shamari in Philly. Life is LIFE. Liberation, independence, freedom, and empowerment. If we're not educating our children to be liberated, independent, free, and empowered, then we're basically teaching them to continue to be a benefit to the system that has basically been oppressing them. And the more we rely on the system, the more they control us. So the point is, we need to be educated to understand that we need self-sufficient control of all of our basic human survival needs. That's our food, clothes, shelter, education, medication, and self-defense. When we can start independent, Black-owned, African-centered schools, we can teach self-sufficiency. We can teach support Black business. We can teach the importance of our culture. And in order to break the chains of psychological slavery, it begins with the education of the children. If we don't take control of what goes into the mind of our children, 50 years from now, we're going to be having the same conversation.
Yeah.
And so we got to, in order to control that, we must have schools. We must have African-centered schools. No African-centered schools, no Black life. It's that simple. And so we must take control of the education of our children. And then when we do, it can't be the same European-centered education. It has to be African-centered education. And it has to be based on African culture. If we're going to break the chains of psychological slavery, we have to engage in African culture. Now, Brother Joseph, we say that often, but we don't always drill down on that. What does that mean? What is African culture? Aspects of African culture, as studied by anthropologists, include, and this is like the biggest standout, group solidarity, communalism. We sure could use that. Now, we got young people in the street, as young as 12 years old, with guns firing on each other like it means nothing.
Right.
So we could use some communalism and some group solidarity right now, right? Of values like hospitality and hard work, right? Because a lot of us are lazy and want to rely on the system. So that's something else we can, use to benefit. A deep respect for elders comes out of African culture. I heard a story, Brother Joseph, coming out of DC area, and it was an elder sister on a public bus, and she was getting off the bus at her stop, and she's older, so she's moving slower. And so there were some sisters behind her. They were younger, maybe teens, early 20-somethings. They start cursing the elder. Hurry the F up. You OB, get the F out the way, right? So a respect for elders is something that we can use and benefit from right now. A respect for ancestors comes out of African culture. I always say we need to be mindful of acknowledging our ancestors because after all, without them, there would be no us, right? An emphasis on not just community, but family also. We always hear the statistic that says that 75% of all Black households is headed by a single Black female. Right. And so this idea of keeping the family intact is an African concept that we need to get back to if we're going to thrive. A focus on the well-being of children. I don't know where you live, but where I live, I see children 5, 6 years old, maybe even younger. They're all the way up the street by themselves with no supervision. Right. So we have to be mindful of that. Self-sufficiency and a self-sufficient status where we create for ourselves everything we need. That's also coming out of African culture. Another thing, and we look over this because it's become a really big problem, but a connection to nature and living in one accord with nature where you're not destroying the environment.
Yeah.
That comes out of psychopathic culture. So you have different types of relationships. You have symbiotic relationships, where each person or entity in that relationship benefits from the relationship. And then you have parasitic relationships where one person or entity benefits and the other person or entity either suffers or gets exploited, right? Which basically describes capitalism. So a connection to nature and taking care of the earth, right? And not destroying the planet that we actually have to live on. Language has always been a very important cornerstone of culture. As it stands right now, most of us only speak the European or the slaveholders' language of English, right? Right. Another key concept in African culture, and I thought this is interesting, teaching morality through storytelling and proverbs. We talk about African people. We don't often talk about the philosophical genius of African people. I'm sure you spent some time on African proverbs. Very profound, very, very, very interesting. Another thing that comes out of our culture, African culture, that we need to get back to is this concept of diet and what to eat. We eat a European-centered diet based on all that meat. That's not our culture. There's an emergency room surgeon, Dr. Milton Mills. He's a brother. He said most Black people in America have ancestry that come out of West Africa. He said the typical West African diet was leafy greens, nuts, seeds, vegetables, right? Things like that. You didn't eat meat. And if you did, you ate small portions. It wasn't like meat every day, right? And so diet is another aspect of our culture that we need to engage in order to engage in African culture. Right. And again, if we're going to break the chains of psychological slavery, we can't continue to eat all these European foods and have all of the health challenges that go along with it if we hope to, survive into the future. And of course, the Nguzo Saba, unity, self-determination, collective work, group economics, functioning with a purpose, creativity, having faith in ourselves, and so forth. So when we talk about education, I hope I'm answering your question.
Yeah.
That education needs to be African-centered. It needs to be based on African culture. It needs to be based on some of the things that I just mentioned, or all of the things that I just mentioned, if we're going to get back to a place where we're surviving and thriving as a people.
Right. So one question is asking about, because you mentioned coming up in psychopathic culture, talking about European culture as psychopathic culture. So correct me if I'm wrong when you're talking about it, but it's the antithesis of African culture, because if African culture is about collectiveness, it's about unity, if it's about working together, and it's about abundance, the psychopathic culture would be the exact opposite: scarcity. So we're going to fight. So we're going to be untrustworthy. Like all of the ills that we can see, the behavior, the bad behaviors that's expressed within Black culture, those are the behaviors that we learn from the psychopathic culture or for European culture. So it's the opposite of living and moving in love and unity. It's in scarcity and fear, and we're going to fight and we're going to tear each other apart because I need to dominate everything. So
yeah, so and I like to give the technical definition of the word psychopath, because if people don't understand that, then they may not understand exactly where I'm going, because I'm seeing a question on the screen in front of me. So by definition, a psychopath is someone that exemplifies antisocial behavior, and that antisocial behavior on occasion is accompanied by violence. Now that to me sounds like Europeans. Now I mentioned there's different kind of relationships. There's symbiotic relationships and there's parasitic relationships. In a parasitic relationship, repeating what I said, one entity or person benefits and the other entity or person suffers or is exploited, as in the case of capitalism. So when I say psychopathic culture, that's what I mean. It's parasitic. It's not communalism. It's not, everyone is going to share equally in the resources. It's exactly what you said. It's we have to fight over this scarcity because we don't know when we're going to eat again, right? This facilitates that individualism and that individuality and that individualistic mentality where I'm going to, and Black people, we've got caught up in it. I'm trying to get mine. I'm trying to do me, right? We get caught up in this individualism without realizing how destructive that is. So psychopathic culture is very selfish. It's very parasitic. And it doesn't benefit everyone involved in the exchange, whatever the interaction is.
Right. But it's also another reason why how we educate ourselves and our children is important. So we won't continue to pass down more of the parasitic culture, the psychopathic culture that we continue to pass down to our children, and the behavior that we continue to exhibit. Because if I'm a parent and I don't care about the quality of my life, I'm going to pass that down to my children, and they could pass it down to theirs, and it's continued cycles. But we also won't spend time learning how to actually solve our problems. How do we fix the problems around us? Because unfortunately now we're literally waiting on our oppressors to fix the problems that they created. And if they do, it's in a Hegelian dialectic way where they can benefit off of the solution.
Parasitic. Right. And so if I could add another layer to the question that was asked about psychopathic culture, something like horror movies is psychopathic entertainment, right? Created by psychopaths. Now, what is psychopathic entertainment going to do but create more psychopaths or make you desensitized to brutality and serial killing and all this kind of foolishness? That's coming out of psychopathic culture.
It is. But look, think about how desensitized to violence we've become over the last just 20 years because of social media. I can get on Twitter right now and scroll all day and watch people get killed. If you are doing that, something is wrong with you. That's not normal.
That's right.
But it also desensitizes you. So when you see something in real life, you treat it like it's entertainment. And now you can't differentiate between real life and what's entertainment, and it's a total detachment. So you just go on about your day like you didn't just see somebody get eliminated in front of you.
Exactly. That's crazy.
I mean, because think about it. People go to war and come back with PTSD.
That's right.
So it is a form of it, but it's maybe not as severe because it's like the small doses. But over time, you're gonna see you're not right because you keep consuming all of this violence, and that's not natural.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's trauma. It's not natural. And untreated trauma, if it continues to go untreated, only gets worse over time. And
Right.
so you talked earlier about social engineering. We know what GMO is, right? Genetically modified organism. I say Black people have become PMO, psychologically modified organisms. And the use of the word modified alludes to the idea that there was some intentionality in the modification. That intentionality, again, is coming from the public school, is coming from the media, is coming from the religious institutions, right? Where we don't have this knowledge of ourselves and we don't have a group approach. We need a group approach to solving our problems, and that approach must begin with group loyalty, right? And so this is where something for me like a Black nationalism becomes important. And because from what I'm seeing, the undercurrent to deal with systemic white supremacy has always been Black nationalism. If you study, you're not seeing a lot of activism coming from certain institutions, whether they be religious or some of these other cultures that pop up. The people that are in the demonstrations, engaged in the boycott, engaged in acts of resistance, for the most part, those are your Black nationalists. And so that's the group approach. We must have the group approach and have loyalty to the group if we're going to solve the problems of the group. Because if we're oppressed together, then we have to eliminate oppression together. Right. Does that make sense?
No, it's perfect sense. We talked about it at the Friday breakdown. But it also comes out of what Dr. Amos Wilson is talking about: individual power versus group power.
Yeah.
The individual is only empowered by the group that it represents. It's like one single solitary. You talked about it earlier. It could be a 500-pound full-grown lion with a dark black mane. Let him be out there by himself.
Yeah, right. Don't matter.
He's not gonna last long.
That's
because the women, those female lions, are the strength of the pride. He's the muscle. He might be the leader in the muscle, but they're the strength of the pride. We're nothing without each other, and we have to understand that. Like, I don't care. Forget all the pleasantries. Black people, we're nothing without each other. Just like a solitary ant versus a colony of ants. Like the Siafa ants, the Siafu ants, when they move through the jungles of Africa, when they move, everything gets out the way. When they move as a colony, everything gets out the way. Because you talked about it earlier. The potential of unity is what they fear.
That's right.
The potential of it. Now, right now, they already know, well, these people aren't getting their stuff together. And so that's why they're going to continue to keep us mixed up so we don't get our stuff together. Because they fear the potential of unity, not the actual unity, but the potential of it. Now, if we get past the potential, now their asses have a real problem.
That's right. Because we're acting on it. And the great Stephen Biko said in the past, the greatest weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the minds of the oppressed. And so that education, that's very important, because the minds of our people are not going to be free until we can get that African-centered education and begin to engage in some of that African culture. Now, being exposed to a European-centered education only is the reason why we lack Black consciousness, is because we've been overexposed to European-centered disinformation. So having knowledge of ourselves gives us back our African identity. Now, I learned this, and I thought this was interesting. I'm going to share. There's been 5 mentalities of Black people subsequent to European disruption and contact with Europeans. The first one is the revolutionary. The revolutionary by definition is defined as someone that wants to bring about fundamental change in a society, right? These are people like Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, Huey Newton, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. That list for us is long. So that's number one, the revolutionary. Number two is the self-hater. These are the people that will go to the Koreans and buy a blonde wig and blonde hair weave and bleach their skin and pray to deities that don't look like them. All of that constitutes self-hate. Number three is the Black person that is completely ignorant to culture and struggle. Mm-hmm. They don't want to know about anything about Africa, all that Black stuff. It's like kryptonite.
Right.
They don't hear it. And then number five is the whatever. These are people that might have a little bit of consciousness. They know something needs to be done, but the attitude is like, you know what? The system is too big. It's too elaborate. So I can't fight it. So it's whatever. I'm going to just try to get paid and do for my family. Mm-hmm. And so if we're going to do away with the four mentalities that don't engage in any active resistance against the system at all, we must be hyper-focused on becoming revolutionaries and causing that change, which is all revolution means, causing the revolution or the change for the better.
Yes. But like it was mentioned earlier, the Willie Lynch syndrome, like we're not going to argue whether because Leaf, I want to mess your name up off Leaf. I'm just saying Leaf. I don't want to mess your name up, but you said it, talking about the Willie Lynch syndrome, because when you made me think about, like, right now, Black people are excited about Trump pardoning like Larry Hoover, right? And so I'm that person who asked the questions that nobody else asked or everybody else is thinking. So I'm at work and we're talking about Larry Hoover being pardoned by Trump. And the first thought popped in my mind was, well, why y'all think he wouldn't pardon somebody like Mumia Abu-Jamal?
Right. Or Marilyn Mosby out of Maryland. But go ahead.
But it's still a part of the structuring and the engineering of the mind of the people, because Larry Hoover will be paraded in front of us as the hero or as somebody who we should be embracing because of his past, but not Mumia Abu-Jamal or any other political prisoner, because what they did was bad. Like what Larry Hoover did was bad, but what they did was bad because they wronged the white man. They were rallying against the system. See, they were just rallying against you all, right? So you should forgive people who were rallying against you and not forgive people that were rallying against the system.
Right, exactly. So now here's the thing with that. And the Republicans have been very slick at doing that sort of thing, even as far back as Richard Nixon. They'll do something for one individual Black person and then say, look, see, I'm not racist. I did this thing for this Black person. Meanwhile, whatever you did does not benefit all Black people. So it's pointless. It's a show. You know what I mean? It's just a show, just to say you did something. Right. And then some people will see that and say, you know what? He did free Larry Hoover. He did do it. So let me fall back because he's not racist. You know, you got to they kind of take their foot off the gas. Yeah. Because they can give you one example of them doing something for one individual that doesn't benefit the group. Yeah.
They already
fall for that trick a lot.
Right. They're already saying, now, hey, he pardoned Kodak Black.
Right.
So how does that help make your community better? Well, it ain't about that. No, it's always about that.
Exactly.
It's always about that. It's always about making sure that you are thinking like a slave. Their job is to keep us thinking like slaves. The Negro mindset must be on display. Think about it. Nowadays, the worst parts of Black culture is what's celebrated as authentic Black culture. I even saw a video of a Black woman saying that the reason good Black men exist is because they failed at being thugs.
What?
Right.
Wow. That's crazy. Like, as if that's something to aspire to, right? So this is how backwards we become. And unfortunately, that's some of the responses that you get. We talked about African-centered psychologists. The great Dr. Wade Nobles talked about conceptual incarceration.
Yeah.
This is when you're mentally and psychologically incarcerated by European ideas and European concepts. And that leads to what Jacob Carruthers called comfortable captivity. we become comfortable in this state of captivity that we live in, whether we realize it or not. And so, you mentioned, certain music artists. I think it's interesting that, and I don't want to make this a conversation about hip hop, but it's interesting that, years ago, Public Enemy could sell an album 1 million copies in a week, right?
It's a reason.
Yeah, Tribe Called Quest. Every album they did went sold at least 1 million copies. We had the Fugees. That was the highest selling rap group in the history of recorded rap music, until Lauryn Hill does an album by herself and she outsold the Fugees, right? And so this is positive music. And so there's people that don't look like us that run the music industry that are telling us, no, this is what Black people want. You want the thuggery, you want the buffoonery, you want the kill other Black people music. And so this is what we're going to put out.
Yeah.
And that idea is false. We don't want that. And we've proven that in the past. We want the positive music if it's there and it's available for our consumption.
Right.
But they've completely deleted that from the radio. And so we don't get it. And so, we had a Black consciousness movement in hip hop in the late 80s going into the early 90s. And I think that should be mentioned in retrospect in the same breath as the Black arts movement or the Black Renaissance.
Yes.
Now, the problem there, though, is that when white-owned record labels and distributors decided that they no longer wanted to distribute and release that kind of music, we had no way to continue the message.
Yeah.
And so then the downturn began. And so we have what we have now. And I think it's interesting. A lot of these radio stations, they have like a rap station, and then they'll have like a, club music station or whatever they would play for a white demographic. If you listen to the lyrics on some of those white-owned Black music stations, they're absolutely deplorable. Listen to the radio stations owned by some of those same corporations where their target audience is white children, and you don't get those kind of lyrics. Right.
It's a better quality of music. But no, I think it's important that we do talk about the music. We do talk about the entertainment, because it's a critical part of the education of modern Black youth, especially if the TV is raising you, if the internet is raising you and your parents aren't.
Right.
So you mentioned the critical point, just being able to look at it. Gangster rap music. I'm a hip hop head. Everybody who know me know hip hop music is my favorite genre of music. I listen to some of everything, but hip hop is my favorite. When I was in the 4th grade, I was listening to Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, NWA, the West Coast music, Ice Cube, cussing up and down the street, calling people tricks, didn't even know what a trick was.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm listening, my shout out to my mentor, Keith Turner. Keith had us listening to Public Enemy. He had us listening to KRS-One, and he had us listening to Rakim and some of the other positive MCs that were out in the late 80s, early 90s. So there was a balance there. And that's the thing that a lot of the younger generations are missing, is a balance. Because you're right, when that injection of consciousness in hip hop happened, that spurred self-respect, self-esteem, unity. A lot of positives came out of that. Now, what didn't come out of that was ownership, which is a problem.
Right.
Ownership didn't come out of that, but a lot of positive stuff did come out of that. But another bad thing about it is it died out, because there was no continuation of it. Now, the backpack music was good. The backpack music was a small continuation of it, but it also died out. And then we saw people like Kanye jump off the bridge in Crazy Land. And I don't know if there will be a return to that. Now, do I expect another injection of consciousness in hip hop music? Yes, because it happens over time. Every 10 to 15 so years, you always get an injection of consciousness. But we have to understand I guess what you could say, how we lean on entertainment to raise the next generations, how much we do. And we don't want to admit it. And then we don't like to admit that what we consume is not good for us.
Yeah.
Gangster rap, I don't care what nobody say. And I love hip hop, but gangster rap wasn't good for us.
Not at all.
But we embraced it, and we made excuses for it, and we protected it, and we let it evolve into this mess that it is now. And now we complaining about the boo-boo that we left on the floor.
That's right. That's right. That's real talk. And I think, again, going back to what I mentioned earlier, as it relates to the civil rights mentality, we kind of had that fervor and the ego that went along with the Black Power movement. So we had the Black Power mentality, but we didn't have the we had the Black Power mentality and activity, because we had the fervor, but we didn't have the Black Power self-determination, right? This is the key concept that came out of the Black Power movement, with this idea of self-determination. So we didn't create the jobs and the establishments for our children.
Right.
We didn't create the schools and the institutions, right? We continue to engage in a civil rights activity by going to all of those white-owned institutions and establishments. And so that's part of the reason why we see people in the street, because they got no hope. They're out there with the guns and they're shooting like it means nothing. They have no hope. Why? Because the generation that preceded them did not produce the institutions and the establishments for them to go to, so that they could have a job, they could have an education, they could have a place to work with it. You would not see the hopelessness, And so I think that's part of the reason why the next generation, because look, we had conscious rap in the late 80s, early 90s. The kids with the guns in the street shooting now, those are the children and grandchildren of Generation X. How was that? How is Generation X the consciousness and hip hop generation, but the children and grandchildren of Generation X are in the street shooting and murdering like it means nothing? And part of the reason is because we had the fervor of the Black Power movement, but we still had the civil rights mentality.
Okay, well, help me out, because this is a thought that I have, but I've only spent a day or two in New York. I've never spent significant time in New York. I'm not versed on New York culture other than what I've been told or saw or learned about. But I know what happened down here in Florida. And there's a conscious community in Florida that we had that included bits and pieces of other conscious groups around the country. You had some Hebrew Israelites, you had some Nation of Islam, you had some Nawabians, you had some all from these other groups or ideas, and then just some people who just were studying consciousness. So there was a conscious community, but nothing tangible came out of the conscious community long term.
Exactly.
And so I look at the consciousness that was involved, that was injected into hip hop, that was around New York, and I hear about the certain groups of the conscious groups that are around New York in the time. And from what I see here, it looks like nothing came out of it. But I'm not in New York, so I'm not going to go out on a limb to say that. But I know what happened here. Nothing tangible came out of here. But the conscious groups was here. What was it like in New York with those conscious groups? Did anything tangible come out of the conscious groups?
No. And that's the point. And that's the point that I'm making. We had the ego and the fervor of the Black Power movement, but we did not manifest the concept of self-determination, which was the key concept that came out of the Black Power movement. So many people still continue to send their children to public school instead of creating a school. A lot of brothers that had knowledge of self and so forth in the 80s, that when they started having children, now they're having children with women who themselves didn't have knowledge of self. So their children still came up in the house celebrating European holidays and praying to white God and white Jesus. You understand what I'm saying? So no major institution came from it. No major businesses came out of it. It was just a moment, and it came and went. And when the system decided that moment was over, they completely put it out of public view. Now, I would say this: if you know how to tune into the right entities, especially online now, the boom bap hip hop is still out there. Still people producing great rap. Yeah. It's the only thing is on commercial radio, you're not going to get that. On the commercial radio, you're going to get the materialism. You're going to get the misogyny. You're going to get music that glorifies Black people harming, brutalizing, and killing other Black people. So that kind of underground music is still there, but it's not on the mainstream. But to answer your question, no, nothing of any real substance at the end of the historical day came out of the Black consciousness movement in hip hop, except for a little bit of Black consciousness, which exists here before you make it manifest in the real world, right?
Right. Nah, that on point. And, you know, out of respect of your time, we want to make sure that we kind of bring this live to an end, but kind of reiterate some things, because we're talking about breaking the chains of psychological slavery, what psychological slavery is and how it affected us long term, even till today, but even into the future. And so solutions we're talking about, well, first, we have to be reprogrammed. Let's start there, right? Because we were socially engineered into the Negro mindset that we have today. So we have to consciously understand what happened to us. Well, we have to learn what happened to us, spend the time learning what happened to us, studying that, and then work to reprogram ourselves and to social engineer ourselves as individuals, our families. We need families. We need healthy families, men, women, and children. We need healthy, strong family units, which build healthy neighborhoods. Healthy neighborhoods build healthy communities. Healthy communities build healthy cities, and on and on and on till we build a healthy nation. But it starts back on your everyday work. What are you doing today? What have you done today? What are you going to do today to make sure that you're your greatest Black self, to retrain your mind, to get away from the Negro mindset, and to make sure that we are moving forward the way we're supposed to be doing? Because the brother Henry, he laid it out all the way out like it was supposed to be. Man, it was a great conversation. You got to come back.
Yeah, most definitely. Let me know when you're ready. But before I close, I do want to say that the great Omar Wali Malcolm X, who we just celebrated the 100th birth anniversary, in 1963, he coined the expression "wake up, clean up, and stand up."
Yes.
And it was a call to action for people of African heritage. And it directs us towards personal and collective liberation. So wake up means become politically and culturally conscious. Acknowledge and embrace your African identity and your African past. You got a lot of Black people now saying that they're not African, and Black people are not from Africa, right? We're somehow American. Saying Black people are not from Africa is like saying the sun is not hot. You may as well believe in Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy if you're going to believe that, right? So we got to wake up and embrace our African identity and our African past. We have to acknowledge, you have to acknowledge your family, your enemies, and your duty to protect and advance your people. Again, that loyalty to the group. A lot of us don't have that mentality. And clean up means identify and correct your character flaws, your self-defeating habits, and inaccurate beliefs, etc. And so I think knowledge of ourselves is what we need if we're going to break the chains of psychological slavery. And knowledge itself provides a framework for how we view ourselves, and how you view yourself is incumbent upon what you do for yourself, right? Mm-hmm. So if you don't see yourself as, someone worthy, then you may consume bad foods. You might smoke things you're not supposed to be smoking, or drink things that you're not supposed to be drinking, right? So what you do for yourself is based on what you know about yourself. And that's a quote from the great Runoko Rashidi. But yeah, we got to end the conceptual incarceration. We got to stop being comfortable captives in another people's system. And we really have to work hard to eliminate the system. I think the great Malcolm X, going back to him, he said, the 1/10, or the white man, is our enemy. He said, many of us don't think so, but time will tell. I think history tells us that that's actually a fact, right? So we have an operative idea right there is enemy. The great Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, in her book, The ISIS Papers, she said, racism is war on Black people. So now we got two ideas. We got enemy and we got war. If we don't understand our situation in the system of structural racism, which is based on the myth of white supremacy within the context of warfare, we will never transform the condition of the group. Now, the great Neely Fuller Jr. said, as the number one victims of systemic white supremacy, our goal should be to eliminate that system and replace it with a system of justice. Mm-hmm. Circling back to the great Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, she said, if you're not doing your part to fight the system of white supremacy, you're basically just trying to get a more comfortable seat in it. And so in closing, I would say that what we need to do, understanding everything I just said, is begin to study how we're going to not only get knowledge of ourselves, not only become self-sufficient as a people, but how do we eliminate that system? And Sun Tzu in The Art of War, he said the supreme art of war is to be able to defeat your enemy without engaging them in battle. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't have to be a bloody revolution, because a lot of people think that too, Right. Revolutionary struggle does not always mean picking up the gun. It could mean that, but that's the last thing you do. Revolutionary struggle is how do you resist the system and engage in acts of resistance and subdue your enemy without engaging them in battle. And some of the things we already touched on today, support Black business, keep the Black family together, right? start establishments, try to get self-sufficient control of your food, clothes, shelter, education, medication, and self-defense. So those are some of the strategies that we need to engage in going forward.
Man, I couldn't have said it better. That was beautiful and very solution based. And that was one of the main points that we made sure we hit today is talk about what was going on, but talk about solutions that we could use. But remember, these are not solutions that, and I'm glad you used the names of the scholars. These are not solutions that we made up.
Right.
A lot of these solutions are not even solutions that these scholars have made up. These solutions that have been around for a long time. They're just being echoed and echoed and echoed. But we have to actually do it.
Right.
And that's the problem. Go ahead.
And I think one of the biggest challenges in revolutionary struggle is changing the minds of the people.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Convincing them that they need to get this knowledge of themselves and they need to engage in active resistance in order to eliminate the system and facilitate a collapse of the system so that we can create a system based on justice. The minds of the people, that's the greatest fight.
Right. So with that being said, brother, tell my audience once again where they can find you and support you.
Okay, you can go to the DJ Tiger channel on YouTube. It's DJAY Tiger. You can find the Fact Project there. I'm live every Monday at 10 a.m. And, I have great guests, great conversations. And also, I would tell people to not only go to the DJ Tiger channel, like and subscribe to that channel, but also like and subscribe on the Shoulders of Giants so that you can continue to get some of these great conversations.
Yes.
And
yes.
I would say go to my website is offthecorner.net. That website again is offthecorner.net. That's for people that might want more information on my book. It's called Fact, Fundamental African Centered Thought. The subtitle is Lessons and Solutions for African People. So the word solution is in the title. So
we do book readings over here.
Oh, say word.
Oh, so we definitely got to read the book. So if you can do me a favor, if you could text me your website so I can make sure I drop it in the description of this video so they can go to the description and be able to get that copy of the book and support it. But I have to get the book and we have to do a reading and a review on this channel because that's what we
most definitely. I would love to do it, bro.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So once again, in respect to your time, I appreciate you coming by. I appreciate you dropping knowledge. And we definitely have to do this again. This is the beginning of something beautiful. So let's make sure we keep this up. And I appreciate everything that you do.
And thank you, brother. Asante Sana for the time, man.
Yes, sir, man. Have a great day.
All right, peace.
All right. And y'all know how we do it over here. Y'all know how we do. I appreciate y'all for showing up and showing out. Y'all the greatest audience in the world. Y'all are the greatest supporters in the world. Y'all are the shoulder standers. We over here doing our thing. And I can't close the show out without showing some love because all of you showed up and showed up asking great questions, engaging in everything. You all are the best. One more time for Brother Henry for coming over and dropping knowledge on us. So you already know Tiffany B. You already know. Thank you. You already know what it is when I see you later. David Lee. Yep. We've been victimized, but we're not gonna be victims. So shout out to David Lee. Lena, you are good with me. Lena, don't worry about the error, the typo error that you made. You are good with me. I appreciate your support and everything, Lena. You cool. We are cool. We ain't gonna never not be cool. All right, we good. Thank you. I messed your name up earlier, then I went back and I realized I ain't gonna lie, I need glasses. Okay. I need some glasses. I need to stop playing to go get me some glasses. Leaf of Life. I appreciate you. I appreciate your support. Khalif, once again, I appreciate you. Kush, I appreciate you for stopping by. Omar Spencer, I appreciate you stopping by. Chisel Chipper 68, I appreciate you stopping by. Tradina Brown, I appreciate you stopping by. Who else came by and hollered at us today? Scott James, I appreciate you for stopping by. Devontae Deciphers, you a real one. I appreciate you. Sade Jones, you a real one. I appreciate you. And everybody who continues to support on the Shoulders of Giants. Make sure you hit that like button, comment, subscribe, share. If you haven't already, remember, I give you the weekly lineup. So Mondays, book reviews. As of right now, we're reading Dr. Claude Anderson's book, Black Labor, White Wealth. So book reviews Mondays. Tuesdays, lectures. I'm going to hit you off with a new lecture this Tuesday. I ain't gonna tell you what it is. You got to wait for Tuesday to see what it is. Wednesday is usually a Black History profile where I'm featuring somebody prominent from Black history, whether it's domestic or foreign. Thursdays is either a break or a clip. Friday is the weekly breakdowns or the Friday breakdowns. And then Saturday, you know, we coming live from Negro News. Sunday, maybe a clip or a show or something. But make sure we give you information on a regular basis and how we doing over here on the Shoulders of Giants. Look, I'm almost at 71,000 subscribers. I want to be at 100K by the end of the year. That's my mission, to be at 100K subscribers by the end of the year. But I need y'all support. I need y'all support. Make sure you are sharing these videos. Make sure you're hitting that like button. Make sure you're commenting. Make sure you're telling a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to spread this information for On the Shoulders of Giants. And if you're in the Tallahassee area, June 28th, the Black History School, we're having our second Black History movie night. The kids want to watch and discuss the movie about Ruby Bridges. So we're going to be talking about everything that surrounded and happened with Ruby Bridges. This is what the kids at the school wanted to discuss. So that's what we're going to be doing June 28th at Carter's Corner at 6 p.m. We will be watching and discussing the Ruby Bridges movie. Also, remember, if you're in the Tallahassee area for the Black History School, every second and fourth Saturday, we are meeting up and doing our lessons for the Black History School every second and fourth Saturday. And remember, if you want to learn more about On the Shoulders of Giants, go to www.ontheshoulders1.com. You can hit that like button, that super like button, super chats. All that stuff is available to support On the Shoulders of Giants. Don't just support me, support Henry Rawl, support Patrick Irvin, support Professor Carl Tone Jones, support my man Rodney with the Black Family Institute. Make sure you support Dr. T. Hassan Johnson. Make sure you support who else I could think of. So make sure you just go around supporting Black folk who out here doing real Black stuff, right? And special shout out to Dr. T. Hassan Johnson. Special shout out to him, Dr. Tommy J. Curry as well, BGS Ipmore, and a lot of the work that they're doing for Black men. The 18 now 19-point Black men political agenda that Dr. T. Hassan Johnson has created is a very important document. If you have not supported Dr. T. Hassan Johnson, go to his YouTube channel, go to his website, and support the work that he is doing for Black men in the academic space. Please support the people who are doing the real work. Go support the people who are doing the real work. That's how we do it over here. Look, once again, you all are the realest. I appreciate you all. I love you all. And make sure y'all catch the next video coming up, because you know next Saturday we're coming back with some Negro news, and I will have more guests for more great discussions. I love you all. Catch y'all on the other side. Peace.